Hi, my love, and welcome to Yes to Life podcast, a podcast about soulful living and sacred feminine embodiment. It is a podcast about following our dreams, open up to our full potential, and saying yes to life. It is also a podcast about remembering the sacredness of the female body and the feminine essence. My name is Helena. I'm a mother of 6 beautiful children and a sacred, sensual, and feminine embodiment guide. I help women in all stages of their lives to love, adore, and understand their female bodies, to celebrate their feminine essence, and to awakening their inner goddess. I'm the founder of Blissful Feminine Flow and the creatrix of programs like Yoni Flowering, Womb Bliss, Sacred Bleeding, Blissful Mama, Pleasure Queen, and Sacred Feminine Body Love. I have always been very open and sensitive and have a feeling that more is possible. Beside my deep love and curiosity for the female body and the feminine essence, which I got mostly from my own pregnancy, birth, and motherhood, I am also very fascinated about people who have dared to walk their own path and follow their dreams and are showing us that more is possible. I can see the power of us coming together and have these deep conversations about the things that we care about. I can also see the gift of listening to these deep conversations. That's why I started this podcast. If this touches something deep within you, please stay tuned and let's get started with today's episode. Hi, my loves, and welcome to another episode of Yes to Life podcast. And today I am here with my beautiful guest, Taraney Nicole, a beautiful, amazing woman who caught my attention with her soft, gentle, and mystical voice, talking about the sacred feminine. She's amazing at putting the sacred feminine into words, and the more I listen to her, the more I love her and her message. So let us get started. So, welcome, my loves, to another episode of Yes to Life podcast. And today I'm here with my beautiful guest, Taraney Nicole, an amazing woman who caught my attention with her soft and gentle and also mystical voice when she was talking about sacred femininity and womb power. And I loved how she was putting everything into words, because this energy is so hard to put into words, but she's doing it. And the more I listened to her, the more I loved her, and I loved her message. So I'm so happy to have her here and to introduce her to you, the listeners. Welcome, Taraney.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here.
Oh, I can feel tinglings in my body, and the energy is moving. So we just start now. But for the listeners who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. My name is Taraney, and my work is really devoted to the feminine and supporting women remember what it means to be woman, and the sacredness in that, the strength in that, the power in that, but also the pleasure and the prosperity that we get to hold as women who choose to say, hey, there's something more here. There's something more happening inside of my body. There's something more happening in my heart and my spirit. And trusting that pull. Usually when women show up in my life, it's because they're starting to trust that pull, and they need somebody to show them, what does it mean to be a woman in my power? How can I learn to hold my power? And the ways that I work with women are through somatics and tantra, really bringing it deep into our bodies and getting to know our feminine energy, our masculine energy, our life force, and our nervous system. And I believe that it all starts here. in our body, if we can access it in our body, if we can heal the memories, the trauma, the ancestral, everything in our body, then we can liberate ourselves to have more space to actually know truth. So a lot of my work is body-based. It's very spiritual and esoteric, but it's also very grounded and, you know, the anatomy of like what's happening in these female bodies and how we can bridge those worlds to really liberate ourselves into that peace and the prosperity and the power and all of these elements that I think are our birthright as women. So that's a little introduction to my passion.
Yeah.
And yeah, what
Yeah.
keeps me showing up here. So
Yes, I know that it's hard to put it in one sentence or 1 minute introduction, but I am sure that the listeners can feel the energy of you and get a sense of what you're doing. And I love the word what you were saying many times now, the power, because when I was listening to you, as I said in the beginning, in the first you was saying about the sacred feminine and how being an oracle to life as women. And I love that so much. And then I kept listening to you, and you start to talk about the power. And that is so interesting how afraid we are for that feminine power. And many of the women I meet daily are also so afraid of that power. And I love how you giving us the right to connect to it again, because I think that this is something that we have to help each other with.
most certainly, like we have to help each other.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I'll say by last week I was in the jungle. I was traveling in Costa Rica, and I was on the beach and in the water and just kind of listening to her. And for me, the goddess is in the ocean, especially the Pacific Ocean. Like I feel her so strong there for me. And I, you know, was like staring at the sunset, just kind of rolling through the waves, like moving. And I felt that wash over me, the goddess wash over me. And she asked me, you know, if I let you feel the wholeness of your power, could you hold it? Could you hold it? And even me as a woman who is so devoted to the goddess, so devoted to the sacred feminine, so devoted to the embodiment of us cultivating our power so that we can live our purpose and reclaim what's ours and live in a way that brings peace to our hearts. I sat back and I was like, wow, yeah, like that's a powerful question, because we've all been trained and ingrained to fear our power as women. You know, the deepest attack on any being, any culture, any type of people, ethnicity, religious beliefs, anything, is to make them fear what's innately there within themselves. And for women, we've had the unique experience of being suppressed for thousands of years through religious control, political controls. And the place that was targeted within us is our power as women. They taught us to fear it. They ingrained it so deeply into us that we forgot all of the mysticism and all of the beauty and all of the just the depth of who we are as beings on this planet, as oracles, as wisdom keepers, as beings who birth future generations. And all of this we've been taught to fear that power and barely scratch the surface. And so my greatest prayer and purpose is to help women face that fear, to listen to those parts of their body that say, I don't know, I'm scared to walk in that room, I'm scared to take up space, I'm scared to use my voice, I'm scared to express, and to actually give them the tools to not just overcome that fear, but to like face it and then feel their power as they're facing it. Because like the goddess asked me in the ocean, if I let you feel the fullness of your power, could you hold it? And I'll be the first to say, there are so many moments where I feel my power and I let it move through me and I act upon it. But to hold it every day, to really trust it and hold it, it takes consistency, it takes devotion. And I believe that we are one of the first generations to really be able to like practice that. So we got to give ourselves grace, and we like, this is so important.
Yes. And that other word that is so important, devotion. That's also something that you talk much about. And when you say it, I feel also that's also something that we have maybe have been afraid of, but
Mm-hmm.
it's allowed to devote ourselves to the goddess, and to the
Mm-hmm.
feminine, and to the love, and to sensuality and pleasure, and to the creativity and everything, to our desires. And it's also such a powerful word, and something that is so needed if we want to go this path, because we have to be devoted.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it don't feel easy, but
Mm-hmm.
if we keep choosing her.
Yes. Mm-hmm. 100%. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's like the principle of the sacred feminine in my experience. Like if I could distill the principle of the sacred feminine into its most simplified form, that would be that the sacred feminine is here to experience devotion and receivership, you know? And I think for a lot of us as women, devotion is like hard because we're not consistent creatures by nature. We feel a lot of emotions, and a lot of times the narrative of discipline overrides devotion. Devotion is not necessarily discipline. It does have discipline woven into it, but devotion is us choosing to show up every day to honor what's important to us, to honor our emotions, our feelings, our callings, and to show up for that consistently so that we can receive it. And it's like with like receivership as like a woman is really hard when we don't know what we're devoted to. It's like when we're hungry and we're like, I want this, I want that, like I crave this, and yeah, just like that hunger, and we're like, I want to receive it, why can't I receive it? Sometimes that's because the devotion is really challenging us. It's like, but what would you really want? Like, why do you really care? So that the sacred feminine is like the first, I feel like, initiator is, what are you devoted to? Like, what's your relationship to that devotion? And even as a cyclical being who's moving with like the stars and the constellations and the moon and the earth and the tides, can you still grasp what you're devoted to in a bigger way? That's something I could go down for a long time, but devotion is, I think it's the backbone that all women need, because it strengthens us, it fortifies us, it
Yeah.
helps us feel like we know what we're doing and why we're here and why it matters.
Yes. Mm. And also, sometimes I feel that the devotion is the opposite of many of the old programs that we have
Mm-hmm.
to go for goals, and to do and to prove something. And
Mm-hmm.
my feminine essence, and the inner goddess, and the devotion I have for love and for life and for the fertility that is bubbling inside of me, is totally the opposite of my old programmings of having to prove and
Mm-hmm.
go for goals. So
Yeah.
that's changing the direction a little bit, or the
Mm-hmm.
focus, what we are, as you said, what is important for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Especially because what we desire does matter. Like the callings that we have for this life, it does matter. Like our visions, everything, it matters. And for a lot of women, that recognition can be a little ambiguous, like knowing our capacity and our potential, and like, yeah, like the potential of what we can do can feel a little ambiguous. And I find that with that element of devotion, it's like that backbone. It gives us the strength to be like, no, I'm here, and I know my potential, and I'm not going to get stuck on the numbers. I'm not going to get stuck on like the specifics of the outcome. I'm not going to control it. I'm going to be devoted to it. And if I can just show up every single day, one foot in front of the other, full in my faith, full in my devotion, fully listening, I know that I can fulfill it. Especially as like oracles and priestesses and women who embody the sacred feminine, all of our purpose and our mission is so much bigger than we can like really fully grasp. Like we grasp threads and cords, and it's always evolving, and we continue to kind of climb that ladder, but the vision's always going to get bigger. Like once you reach the fulfillment of one vision, it's like you're going to look out and you're going to see another calling you, and that devotion fortifies you to keep going. Because our purpose, like we came here to change a lot, we came here to rebirth a lot on earth and establish a new narrative of what it means to be woman. And we need to be in our power. We need to learn to trust our power in order to really fulfill those visions.
Mm. Mm. Yes, I love the allowance of it, because I think that for me, and I know that many of the women who are listening, we know this inside of us, but we have forgotten, as you said. It's like a disconnected connection. And when you or someone is talking about it, it's such a remembrance and allowance. Hey, it is okay to be devoted. It is okay to have desires and big dreams and want more. It's a gift.
It is a gift. And
Yeah.
it gets to be pleasurable. We get to have peace in our hearts and our bodies. We get to experience enjoyment and pleasure and the prosperity of it all. And I think we're all so scared of letting ourselves feel that pleasure, feel that joy, because we're scared it's going to be taken away from us. Rightfully so. It has been. Like our ancestors have experienced so much trauma, so much betrayal. Us in our own lifetime have experienced that. So it's like rightfully so, we have those fears. And like there comes a point as a woman where you just gotta say enough. I'm drawing the line in the sand and I'm choosing my pleasure. I'm gonna choose to retrain my body to let me feel joy, to let me feel purpose, to let myself like truly know prosperity, and that my peace is a gift on earth. Like there's like you get to feel that, you get to cultivate that. It's your birthright.
Yes. And that's where the devotion comes in for me. Because if I'm just looking for some special outcome, then it's I lose the way. But if I'm keep on being devoted, then the pain and the pleasure can be there at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, how important it is to be in the body. I love your way talking about the soma and
Yeah, because we do have to be in our body, and it's all in the nervous system, right? It's like if your nervous system can feel it, if your nervous system can get into that parasympathetic state, the pleasure state, you're free. And then when the stress comes up, when the hardship comes up, if your nervous system has the training, the capacity to meet that stress and do what it needs to do in the sympathetic nervous system state, to handle it, to like objectively be with the stress and move it through your body, and then go back into the parasympathetic state, you've won. But in this society, I live in America, and I know you live in Sweden, right? Right? Yeah, Sweden. So it's like we live in these Western societies where there's so much narrative around going, doing, like being, and like these, like just the force that we're like all pressured to continue keeping up with. And that keeps us in the sympathetic nervous system state. And that's why it takes so much work to get into like the states of pleasure, to get in the states of peace, because we have to retrain our nervous system to know that we can, that's valuable, because we've been trained that like if we're not in the going, if we're not in that like fight or flight, then we're not really working towards anything. And it's just such a lie. And like our true harmonious nature is not to always be in the pleasure. It's not always to be in the chaos. It's to be able to navigate both with grace and fluidity and the organic design that our bodies were created to move through pleasure and pain simultaneously with harmony. And I find that for women, this is really challenging because we do feel so much. And in this society that is heavily masculine and expects us to perform in a masculine way when it comes to our finances and our businesses or our jobs or our careers, when we get a cortisol spike, when we go into a stress state, that cortisol is going to run through your system for 24 hours, a full day, before it starts to come down. Whereas a man, it takes him, like a man's body will get a cortisol state and it'll go, and then once he sorts it out, it'll come down within 20 minutes. And so I find that this information is helpful for women when understanding what's happening in their bodies and their nervous systems, so that when they experience the big peak of stress, it's not like natural for them to just snap out of it. Like, we need time, we need soothing, we need the opportunity to really think things through and feel it and create a true solid foundation based off that experience. But if we're going into stress every single day, then that 24-hour period just keeps going, and our body has no idea how to go back into the peace, into the parasympathetic state, because it's just kind of been on this wheel of fight or flight, of cortisol, of all of those hormones going. It hasn't had the chance to like slip in, and we might start to feel that come down of the cortisol, and then maybe the next day something happens and the stress spikes, or we're just in a stressful time of our life. And so we can kind of start to feel a slip into the peace and the pleasure. But I think for a lot of women, it's like we touch it and then we're like, okay, go back, but to like bask and really hold that peace and that pleasure, it takes work, it takes devotion, and it's so good. It's so good for you. And I think that's like our birthright, is to like really work towards finding that balance so that we can be free.
Absolutely, yes. And I also think that is so much shame that is coming up with just feeling relaxed or feeling pleasure. I know for me that was in the beginning, it was really hard. Is it okay? Am I worth it? And I'm not doing anything, or is it coming to hurt me in some way? So you have to have that devotion, and also the knowledge that this is what is happening. It's so important to keep going and to keep exploring this part of us.
Most definitely. And I think that's the sacredness of, like, when we become devoted to ourselves and we actually take the time to heal our trauma, our pain, change our life, all of these things, it actually supports us in pursuing the truth of who we are. And when we get to that point of truth, when we find our center, that trust builds and the shame can really work itself out, and where we're like, oh, actually, like, wow, I can feel fulfillment, I can feel satisfaction. Like, how many of you, our listeners, are like struggle to feel true fulfillment, to feel true satisfaction when you reach your goals, when you have that big experience that you looked forward to, when you are that woman that you worked so hard to become? How long do you let yourself bask in that fulfillment? And I was actually talking to a client about this last week. Your ability to bask in that is how you appreciate your life. Not just the level of appreciation of showing gratitude. It's like you increase its value. Like your life appreciates in its value the more you actually let yourself relax, you let yourself receive, you let yourself lean back into the life you've created, the woman that you've become. The value of who you are, the worth of who you are expands. And that is such a like fundamental aspect of womanhood, that when we can actually work that muscle and we can and gain comfortability and build trust there, it carries us into the confidence where we can walk into a room and we're in our power. We can hold our power without dropping it just because somebody else is looking at us, because we've let ourselves receive the pleasure of our lives and our experiences, and we've built that trust with it. And one of the worst things that we can do is expect anything different, to expect ourselves to perform differently, to feel anything that's not organically here in our bodies. It's like the experience of, oh, I thought, when I have this man and I have this home and this experience, that I would be happy, and now I'm here and that's actually not what I'm feeling. That like we have to follow those feelings and we have to stay honest to ourselves, because the more we stay honest to ourselves, the more we actually make space to fill up with that satiation, to fill up with the fulfillment. Because if we're faking it and we're forcing it and like we're expecting ourselves to be satisfied by these numbers or these milestones or these big goals, we're not actually staying true to our feeling. It's like we're using our mind to create an experience that we think that we want, and we're bypassing the body, the womb, the heart, the deep, like the head's only up here, like such a small percentage of our body, and there's everything deep, like so much deeper. And we can empty out those expectations. We have so much space to actually be honest about who we are, what we want, what we need to feel satiated, if we have the capacity to lean back into our life, or is there something missing that we need to show up and be devoted to. It's all about honesty. And I think for so many women, there can be this pressure to perform and to pretend that we're happy and that everything's okay and that we've got it, and like all the things, that we're in our pleasure. Like there's so much pressure to perform and wear that mask. And I just believe that we have to take off that mask and just be honest with ourselves. And the moment we do, we're like, oh, now I can relax because we're being honest. And we love that. Like when my friends and like are like reveal the parts of themselves that are hurting, when my family does that, when the people in my life do that, I know where to love them. And that's super important for all of us, that we let people know where we need love. And of course, there's some people who can't hold us there. There's some people who won't love us there. And that's our job to discern, can this person actually love me where I hurt the most? Can this person actually see the honest truth of who I am? And if they don't, it's like you're just objective, like, okay, that's not my person. How can I create more people, more environments in my life where I don't have to wear these masks in order to feel worthy of XYZ,
Absolutely. And just the armor, all these masks and armors. And sometimes I feel when women come to me and they are talking about especially things that have happened in their yoni and in their hips and in their womb space. And when they can be allowed to express it, then the healing starts to happen also. So this connection between the throat and the yoni and the womb and the hips is so, it frees us when we dare to open this channel up.
Oh my God. I mean, how many of us, like, how much ancestral trauma could we have avoided inheriting if our past ancestors just felt safe enough to speak, to say what happened to them? It's like our voice is so important for us to cultivate as women, because you're right. The moment you speak it, the moment your body's like, oh, I don't have to hold that anymore. Like the vibration of your sound is literally radiating it out of your body, even if it's just like and you just let yourself like wrath your voice out without even words. It's like those things create space. And then like the womb is the pleasure center. She's the creative center. Like she has the capacity to feel her power, feel her pleasure, feel her purpose, feel her peace, feel her prosperity, and create more of it. And if our throat is closed, our womb is going to be stifled. It's not going to be able to actually expand and reveal to us the nature of what it is and what it can do for us. It's a deep body thing that can't be bypassed.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel that's a really important thing. And I can see many women, you can see that is something that they want to express, but it's so close. So they have to speak for a long time before the real thing comes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like a muscle that you work, and there's layers. And like I really believe in the power of environments. Like when I'm in an environment where I have the opportunity to express myself and I do it, I feel free, I feel powerful. But if I'm in an environment where I know that these people can't hear me, they can't feel me, I don't need to reveal my whole truth in that space. It's like there's power in the sacred feminine, of the deep feminine, of knowing, is this somewhere that can hold me? And so that's why I'm so like, I give my whole life and my purpose to like hosting retreats, to like bringing women together, to having ceremonies and rituals where we are together and we can have the safe environments that we need to actually express ourselves. And every time we show up, it's like you said, a layer unleashes, another layer unveils itself, and we can start to get closer and closer to that core, which is our truth, and expressing that truth. It's a muscle that we have to cultivate, but without the right environment, how can we open that? How can we unfurl that, environment if it's unfurl that gift if we don't have the environment to nourish it, right?
And it's so interesting how this devotion comes back all the time, because we have to be devoted, and it's so much easier because devotion has nothing to do with getting an outcome. Nothing at all. It's just that being moved by life, and that being that open oracle. And it's so much, then pleasure comes by itself almost, if we allow it to flow. Yeah.
Yeah, the feeling. Like that's it's just about feeling. If we can just keep it so simple, it's just about feeling, liberating ourselves to be able to feel alive. And aliveness doesn't want you to exist in one domain of life. Aliveness wants you to feel everything, the full spectrum, the pain, the pleasure, the full range. And if we can feel it, then we're really living, and there's so much beauty in that. It's like the times in life where I feel the most pain, they crack me open to get to know the most pleasure. And it's so hard, and sometimes I hate it and I curse at it and I'm like, I don't want this, like why? And then I'm like, okay, well, I know why. Because there's something on the other side of this for me that I know I need, and I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna be devoted to it, not to get across the finish line, not to like receive any tangible thing in return, but just to free myself to feel more, to expand my capacity to be honest, to expand my capacity to feel my power, my peace, my purpose, my pain in a way that's unyielding. It's like that's why we do the devotion, is to just be free, to just show up and no longer be suppressed by where we've learned to shut down, where we've learned to play small, where we've learned to silence ourselves. Nobody wants to live that way forever.
Yeah. and also how such a gift we are as women to the world. Because, as you said, we are the one who is birthing the new earth and the new generation. But also, I talk much about this, that we as women are the inspiration for the men, because we are that life-giving aspects of life.
Yeah.
So allowing it to be taking back that gift and that power, I think that is something that we have to talk so much about, because it's like we know it in some way, but we have to just keep on doing it, as you said, every day, every moment, and spreading this knowledge, or this sacredness. I love the word sacred too. It's a beauty.
It's so sacred. And that's like the beauty of the feminine, is that she's here to make the world a more beautiful place.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen what happens when women aren't in power. Like, we can look at all of the world issues and see the lack of femininity. And I believe that when a woman feels her pleasure, she knows her power. And a woman who's embodied in her pleasure and power creates prosperity. And that prosperity brings peace. And when she's embodied in her peace, she has purpose to give. And that's why I believe, like, in the value of this work and the value of showing up for it every day and doing what I can, because world peace, the big changes that we need to see in this world, will come from the women who can hold their power, who can hold their pleasure, who know their purpose, who can feel their prosperity. Because we can, and another analogy is, like, if you look at a man's house who does not have a woman and he's just like living alone with his bros or maybe on his own, usually it's a little dull. Like, it takes a really special man who's embodied in his feminine to have a home that feels inviting and beautiful. And you have a woman come in and love this space, she's going to mark beauty. And what does beauty bring? Beauty brings peace. It softens the nerves. It gives us something to enjoy, right? And so every action that we take in this world has the capacity to leave that mark also, whether that's online using our voice, or in a park, or in a garden, or at the grocery store. Like, we can, if we are in our power, like, not the power that's overriding, not the power that pressures, the true power that just helps life exist and helps the divine plan lay itself out, we make the world a more beautiful place. And for me, like, when I touched that and I let myself really feel the potency in that, it made being in my power, it made being in my purpose so much easier, because I realized, like, oh, it's not about overpowering or like grasping for anything. It's just about being in beauty and being in peace, and letting that be the foundation for my life. And I get to receive that, you know? So that's like my deepest prayer for all women, is that we find our way to grasping that and to cultivating it and grounding it so deeply, so that when we see something ugly, when we see something that is dark, that's atrocious, that hurts, we're so well integrated with the beauty, with the peace, with the sacredness, that we can bring that to those spaces and help the world heal.
Yes. And I think that one of the most painful thing we are doing is playing small and holding ourselves back. A couple of months ago, it was so obvious and so, yes, I could feel that was what I was doing, and how painful it was, and how painful it was to be so afraid of what other people would think of me if I shined brighter, or uh, brought more beauty to every moment, and to if I loved more, and was totally devoted and showed my devotion. I was so afraid to leap into the next stage of my expression of goddess and this sacred femininity. And I also felt how painful it was to keep trying to hold it back and to dimming it and to playing smaller and to, yes, holding it back. And then I started a 6-week circles called Shine Sister Shine. And just by saying yes to that, pain started to go away in the body and in my whole being. Then the pain, or not the pain, but the fear of, oh shit, what am I doing in the middle of this circle? If I hadn't had that devotion, then I think it probably would be hard. But with the devotion and connection to the feminine who is keep on going, then it was so much easier. And I think that maybe that is the journey we are doing as women that are saying yes to this path. We are coming to rebirth ourselves many times.
Yes. And we don't need to fear the initiation. It's like there's a time in a woman's life where the goddess pulls her under. We can see that in all the myths and all the stories, you know, where we go into the underworld because we have to face those fears. We have to face that darkness, and it makes us better, stronger women. And so when we get the urge to play small and life is asking us to stare at that pattern in our with our eyes, so full of devotion, so full of how can I heal this? How can I change this? I don't want to do this anymore. We initiate ourselves and we are initiated into the goddess. And so I know how scary that is, and also I know how human it is to question ourselves and to go through all of that, because it's part of the initiation. And it's not about the experience of like, oh no, I did it again, or oh no, I'm playing small again. Like we don't need to punish ourselves. We don't need to feel guilty about it. It's just about catching it. Like when we notice we're going into those patterns, catching it and then being like so full of love that we give ourselves permission to say, how do we want to clear this? How do we want to calibrate to whatever's on the other side of this? If what's on the other side of this is my power, how can I take what I just caught, that thought, that diminishment? How can I take that and transmute it into my power, alchemize it into my power? That's how we pull ourselves out of those underworld, and that's how we initiate ourselves as women. And it's just part of the process. And you know, I think there's so many of us women who are just like, oh, I just want it to be easy, like I'm so done. And I get that, and I go through that all the time, and I throw my temper tantrums, and I'm like, okay, fine, okay, life, like let's do this, let's do it. And you know, I really, like I said, I believe in having the consistency and the environments for us to practice that within, like this sister circle. Like if you didn't have that environment, like it would have been different. But because you had the right environment to practice that in and to overcome it and see it, it strengthened you, it supported you. But if we just keep hiding, if we don't move through that initiation, if we don't let ourselves be seen, if we don't let ourselves be heard, if we're not acknowledging what we're feeling, we just go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And eventually we're going to have to climb out. Like eventually, whether it's this lifetime or next lifetime or our future daughters, eventually that pattern is going to have to climb out of the cave. It can be us, it can be this lifetime, or it won't be. And we have that choice, and that's our right to have that choice. And we deserve to feel powerful. We deserve to feel good. We deserve to know peace. Oh, we deserve that.
Yes.
And it's okay. It's okay to let that happen, right?
And it's also easier when we have this daily practice, when we are devoted. Once again, when we are walking this path and I said yes and have this daily practices, and it's much more easier also.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Deep bow to the daily practice, like the rituals that hold us, those moments of serenity and peace that we gift ourselves, like to feel like it really is so essential.
Yeah. And another thing I know that you was talking about was uh, Venus.
Mm-hmm.
I love. Do you want
Mm-hmm.
to talk a little bit about that? I think that the what I heard you say about it was more than just beauty, because
Mm-hmm.
she's beauty and love, but also this feminine power.
Yeah. Um, God, there's so much to say on Venus. Like this planet, I mean, obviously I'm a sacred woman, and so she's very powerful for me. And like, there's a lot of really profound placements of Venus in my birth charts. So she's always teaching me and always initiating me and helping me better connect with what she is and what her truth is. And something that I found is that a lot of the narratives around Venus are own like it's almost like they tricked us. They were like, oh, you're like, they portrayed Venus as like climbing out of the shell, and she's like on her beauty and pleasure and like the Aphrodite energy, which is beautiful. And yes, that is a facet of the feminine. And the first thing that Venus taught me, and I believe is like her ancient truth, is that there's a difference between vanity and beauty. And a lot of times women get so stuck in the physical appearance of things that they slip into the vanity. And that will be our first demise. Like, it actually suppresses the feminine to focus too much on the vanity of things, whether that's how things look, how things sound, how things feel, like that perfectionism. It really can stifle, it can keep us stuck. But if we kind of find our balance with the beauty, and what is beauty? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's in the feeler of the heart, like we feel beauty. And if we can stay attuned with that feeling, that and the truth, find our truth and what beauty is to us, she exalts. And so while Venus is the planet and the wisdom keeper and the goddess of pleasure, of money, of wealth, of marriage, of happiness, of birth, of course she doesn't want us to get stuck in the vanity of it all, because true love is not always perfect. There's precision, there's devotion, there's these very specific elements, but if we get stuck in trying to keep things perfect or trying to control it, she's not like it's not going to be as great as it is if you let like nature run its course and let yourself just be with what's true. Then Venus can actually exalt in your life and guide you to where she sees you flourishing, because there's no resistance. It's like the armor softens and the illusions fade, and we can actually clearly see what's in front of us. And in my experience, like, Venus does not want me to fake it till I make it. She's like, no, like, you are here to be honest. You are here to stare at what's in front of you. And if it's pain, it's pain. If it's beauty, it's beauty. If it's pleasure, it's pleasure. If it's trauma, it's trauma. And the more that I can just be with that, the more she can actually exalt into my life and let that depth of intimacy open up the new space for me to occupy my power. And especially when it comes to like money and marriage and all these elements in our life that like really create a lot of security for us, like that divine masculinity, like there has to be, like, she doesn't want it to be fake. Like, for the feminine to actually receive that security, it needs to be substantial and it needs to be true and honest. And then it can really hold her. But if we're faking it till we make it, or we're getting lost in the vanity of it all, how could we possibly feel safe there? We might have the illusion of safety, but then something will come along and sweep we'll feel like the rug was swept under our feet and we'll feel lost. And that's not true safety. True safety is like, like, I got this. Like, this has me. It's cultivated. It's sustainable. It's nourishing. So I mean, I can go on and on and on about that, but yeah, I just my biggest thing with Venus is that true prosperity, that true pleasure, that true just like the beauty way of Venus. It's very complex, and they've kind of fed us this image of her of like, if you're just in the Aphrodite energy, you'll know Venus. And I tried that, and it didn't work for me. So for some reason, I mean, I think there's just a deeper lesson for me to share with my people, and I'm here to share that. And maybe for some people, just focusing on the qualities of Venus from the Aphrodite lens work. I like to explain it like, Venus, and I'm really into like the Vedic cosmology and Tantra world. And so Venus and the Indian like Vedic cosmology is Lakshmi. And Lakshmi is all about, yes, prosperity and abundance, but also she's about preservation. How can we sustain life? So for me, those qualities of Lakshmi, those qualities of that kind of sacred femininity, it feels so much more sustainable, so much more substantial than getting lost in the looks and the vanity. And trust me, I love Aphrodite. I love, that aspect of the goddess and being in like the sensual, sexy feminine, and like the seductress and all of those things. Like it's fun and it has its place, but that's not the goddess. Like the goddess is so much more.
Yes, I totally understand.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing this because this is so important. And I think that just that feeling of being naked and raw and authentic is more that energy of Venus just being open and naked and allowing life to flow freely without any masks or covers or as you said, trying to do anything. Because that openness and nakedness and pure pure expression of life. And I love that. I think that you said that oracle, the sacred feminine has the oracle relationship to life. And I love the word oracle too, because it's so beautiful. It feels like this empty temple that life flows through. And,
The
and that's,
aliveness.
yes, exactly. And I also agree that it's so easy to get caught up in the fiction or yes, the image of things that I think that this has to look a certain way. Beauty, if you look in nature, it's like many shapes. It's beautiful because it's alive. Yeah.
Yeah, I really feel the power of that, just kind of capstone to this conversation that we've been having, which is so beautiful, is the rawness, and like
Yeah.
how much power is in the rawness. And it kind of painted this imagery in my head of like when we're making love to our partner, we're naked. There's most of the time like we're naked, and in order to get to those deep orgasmic pleasurable states for our body to like ripple and experience that ecstasy, it takes the nakedness. It takes letting down our walls, letting down our armor, our shields, and letting the fullness of who we are actually be penetrated and be loved and nourished and pleasured. And that's what leads to the ecstasy. It's not the performance. It's not like I there's so many women that I've worked with who have experienced sexuality and had, these beautiful sexual experiences and have tasted pleasure, but it's like when they actually work on their armor and they drop all of that down and they can practice learning how to receive true pleasure, how to be like worshipped and devoted, and experience those deep orgasmic states where you're crying, where you're breaking through, where you're cracking open. They're like, whoa, I didn't know that much pleasure could move through my body. And the only reason it was able to move through their body is because they were raw, they were naked, not just physically, but energetically, emotionally, their hearts were laid bare. That's the power of the feminine.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
So beautiful. Thank you, Taraney. I think we can go on for many hours, but I think we're going to wrap up for this time. So I think that is many women that are listening that wants to connect to you more and to want to see what you're doing and know more about you. So where can they find you?
Yeah. Well, the best way to find me is my website. My website is taraneynicole.com, just like my name. And then my Instagram is the same, at Taraney Nicole. And I really like sharing myself in a lot of different ways. I write articles, I post on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel. And so there's a lot of ways to connect with me and listen to me. And, I always just invite women to start kind of peeking at my free content. And then from there, see where that leads, because there's so much out there that I've put over the years to receive. And like right now, one of my favorite things to offer is my free practice. It's called Stop Dropping Your Power. And it's all about integrating your power as a woman. And it's a somatic movement practice. We're doing expressive art therapy to look at those places where we drop our power, where we let it go and we play small. And it's a somatic practice to help you not only pick up your power and own your power, but to get really clear on the pattern of, why do I drop my power? Where do I drop my power? So that's a really powerful practice that I have for free, that women can gain access to on my website. And I think that's a great place to begin. But yeah, if you're curious about me, if you want to learn more, I mean, there's so much out there. And I love to let women know to not be a stranger. Like, I'm here as your sister. I'm here as a leader, as a guide. And this is an experience that we get to move through together. So I'm happy to connect and share wisdom and mentor women. And I lead retreats. Like, there's always spaces for us to explore and expand within as women.
Beautiful. I love that power practice. It's lovely. Yes. So just share out and choose from her all her magic. Yes. So thank you, Taraney, for today, and thank you everybody who listened.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If this was touching you, please feel free to share. And to find out more, check out the links below.